Welcome to this daily PBJ devotional. Read Deuteronomy 13 and 14, Jeremiah 6, and Psalms 69 through 71 today. This devotional is about Deuteronomy 13 and 14. If a prophet or dreamer of dreams arises among you and proclaims a sign or wonder to you, and if the sign or wonder he has spoken to you comes about, but he says, "Let us follow other gods, which you have not known, and let us worship them," you must not listen to the words of that prophet or dreamer, for the Lord your God is testing you to find out whether you love him with all your heart and with all your soul. You are to follow the Lord your God and fear him. Keep his commandments and listen to his voice. Serve him and hold fast to him. Such a prophet or dreamer must be put to death, because he has advocated rebellion against the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt and redeemed you from the house of slavery. He has tried to turn you from the way in which the Lord your God has commanded you to walk. So you must purge the evil from among you. If your very own brother, or your son or daughter, or the wife you embrace, or your closest friend secretly entices you, saying, "Let us go and worship other gods, which neither you nor your fathers have known, the gods of the peoples around you, whether near or far, whether from one end of the earth or the other," you must not yield to him or listen to him. Show him no pity, and do not spare him or shield him. Instead, you must surely kill him. Your hand must be the first against him to put him to death, and then the hands of all the people. Stone him to death for trying to turn you away from the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery. Then all Israel will hear and be afraid, and will never again do such a wicked thing among you. If regarding one of the cities the Lord your God is giving you to inhabit, you hear it said that wicked men have arisen from among you, and have led the people of their city astray, saying, "Let us go and serve other gods, which you have not known," then you must inquire, investigate, and interrogate thoroughly. And if it is established with certainty that this abomination has been committed among you, you must surely put the inhabitants of that city to the sword. Devote to destruction all its people and livestock. And you are to gather all its plunder in the middle of the public square, and burn the city and all its plunder as a whole burnt offering to the Lord your God. The city must remain a mound of ruins forever, never to be rebuilt. Nothing devoted to destruction shall cling to your hands, so that the Lord may turn from his fierce anger, grant you mercy, show you compassion, and multiply you as he swore to your fathers. Because you obey the Lord your God, keeping all his commandments I am giving you today, and doing what is right in the eyes of the Lord your God. Deuteronomy 14. You are the sons of the Lord your God. Do not cut yourselves or shave your foreheads on behalf of the dead, for you are a people holy to the Lord your God. The Lord has chosen you to be a people for his prized possession out of all the peoples on the face of the earth. You must not eat any detestable thing. These are the animals that you may eat: the ox, the sheep, the goat, the deer, the gazelle, the roe deer, the wild goat, the ibex, the antelope, and the mountain sheep. You may eat any animal that has a split hoof, divided in two, and that chews the cud. But of those that chew the cud, or have a completely divided hoof, you are not to eat the following: the camel, the rabbit, or the rock badger. Although they chew the cud, they do not have a divided hoof. They are unclean for you, as well as the pig. Though it has a divided hoof, it does not chew the cud. It is unclean for you. You must not eat its meat or touch its carcass. Of all the creatures that live in the water, you may eat anything with fins and scales, but you may not eat anything that does not have fins and scales. It is unclean for you. You may eat any clean bird, but these you may not eat: the eagle, the bearded vulture, the black vulture, the red kite, the falcon, any kind of kite, any kind of raven, the ostrich, the screech owl, the gull, any kind of hawk, the little owl, the great owl, the white owl, the desert owl, the osprey, the cormorant, the stork, any kind of heron, the hoopoe, or the bat. All flying insects are unclean for you. They may not be eaten, but you may eat any clean bird. You are not to eat any carcass. You may leave it to the foreigner residing within your gates, and he may eat it, or you may sell it to a foreigner, for you are a holy people belonging to the Lord your God. You must not cook a young goat in its mother's milk. You must be sure to set aside a tenth of all the produce brought forth each year from your fields, and you are to eat a tenth of your grain, new wine, and oil, the firstborn of your herds and flocks, in the presence of the Lord your God, at the place he will choose as a dwelling for his name, so that you may learn to fear the Lord your God always. But if the distance is too great for you to carry that with which the Lord your God has blessed you, because the place where the Lord your God will choose to put his name is too far away, then exchange it for money. Take the money in your hand and go to the place the Lord your God will choose. Then you may spend the money on anything you desire: cattle, sheep, wine, strong drink, or anything you wish. You are to feast there in the presence of the Lord your God and rejoice with your household. And do not neglect the Levite within your gates, since he has no portion or inheritance among you. At the end of every 3 years, bring a tenth of all your produce for that year and lay it up within your gates. Then the Levite, because he has no portion or inheritance among you, the foreigner, the fatherless, and the widow within your gates may come and eat and be satisfied. And the Lord your God will bless you in all the work of your hands. This is God's word. There was no freedom of speech in ancient Israel. However, the only banned speech was religious speech, blasphemy, and false doctrine, to be specific. Deuteronomy 13 sets forth regulations against false doctrine. Verses 1 through 5 told God's people not to believe a false prophet, even if he performed some kind of miraculous sign. We saw that in verses 1 and 2a. God used miraculous signs to authenticate his messengers, especially Christ himself. But they were not the measuring stick for what is true or false. Just as Pharaoh's magicians were able to do some miracles, you can see Exodus 7, 11, and 12 for one example, Satan can sometimes do impressive things with his supernatural powers. But God taught here in Exodus 13 that he sometimes would allow false teachers with supernatural signs and wonders to come to Israel. God's purpose for allowing them was to test the Israelites, as verse 3 put it, to find out whether you love him with all your heart and all your soul. Again, that's verse 3 from the NIV. No matter how impressive a supernatural demonstration was, God's people were to remain obedient to his written word, as verse 4 tells us, and not abandon his word for the words of a false prophet. False prophets were a threat to God's people because they incited, as verse 5a says, rebellion against the Lord your God. Given all that God had done in delivering his people from Egypt and protecting and guiding them through the desert to the promised land, Israel should have had no problem with restricted theological speech. If you know the true God, there's no reason to dabble in false doctrine. Only danger can come from doing that. God's prescription then for false prophets was the death penalty, as we saw in verse 5a. Not only were false prophets with impressive supernatural powers to be refused and even punished in Israel, but verses 6 through 11 tell us that even if you have a personal connection to someone who tries to turn your heart to another god, you should still see that they are punished. We saw that in verses 6 through 11. Show them no pity, God's word says. Stone them to death, because they tried to turn you away from the Lord your God, who brought you out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. Those words are all from verse 10 in the NIV. Verses 12 through 18 describe how to handle false teachers once Israel was established in the land. After investigating charges of heresy in a nearby town fully, as verse 14a described, God's people were to publicly and completely purge the town of its false doctrine, then permanently destroy that town itself for not obeying God's commands about false doctrine. We saw that in verses 15 through 18. These sections remind us how seriously God takes his word and how destructive false doctrine is to true worship. We live in a free society and do not impose such serious penalties on false teachers as Moses commanded in this passage. But despite that, we should not toy with or tolerate deviations from God's written word. God's word provides the standard for what is true or false. To entertain false doctrine just because there are signs and wonders involved or loved ones involved is to tolerate that which God says is destructive. Watch carefully then where you turn for spiritual information. Your spiritual life, not to mention the spiritual life of anyone else living in your home under your authority, but all of that depends on holding fast to the purity of God's word. So be careful where you get your doctrine. And I'll see you next time. May God bless you. Hope you have a great day today.